Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are doing yet another instant reaction show. It feels like this is kind of all we do now is something happens and we go, "Oh, we got to do a show right now. Hurry up, real quick." So here we are yet again.
Yet again, and we shouldn't have to be doing these in June and July, but apparently that's when all the big news happens. So it is what it is. But yes, we are here with another instant reaction from an Ohio State commitment, the verbal commitment of Quentin Woods cornerback Jermaine Mathews, 4-star prospect, number 24 athlete nationally, number 373 player overall. A camp offer back, oh gosh, I think about a month ago today, actually, camping on June 1st, and was really one of the top prospects at the camp. Ran a 4.35 in one of his 40s at OSU. And then in the subsequent weeks, camped at LSU, earned an offer from Alabama, has earned an Oklahoma offer. So yeah, Tom offers up his verbal commitment today to Ohio State. And there's always something about these camp offers that become Buckeyes that are they're interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's really fun to see someone get just come to camp with the goal of doing something, and it's just like here is one day, and it's not even a full day, it's like half a day. Here is from 1:30 or 1 o'clock this afternoon until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Your entire life could change if you do really well. It is, like a high stakes college football version of trying out for a Broadway play or something like that. And this is not like they're just kind of like going through a few things, and the coach is like, yeah, I don't know, that kid's fast, like that's fine, we'll throw him an offer. This is pretty high stakes stuff with the level of college football that Ohio State plays. And when you watch these kids go through these workouts, when Jermaine Matthews is working out, Perry Eliano is right there, Tim Walton's right there, uh, Jim Knowles is right there. They are all watching very, very, very closely. Jim Knowles is out there running through these drills with these guys. Ryan Day comes over and watches, but before anyone gets an offer, Ryan Day has to see him doing stuff as well. That's kind of one of our big tip offs, like, hey, an offer might be coming. Is Ryan Day is watching the defensive backs. I think that probably means something. And there was a pretty good group of players that day with Jermaine Matthews, and he was he was very impressive. And they are looking for all the you talked about the measurables of the 40 time, but they're looking. Jim Knowles is putting them through drills where they run forwards and they flip their hips and run backwards, and then they have to flip their hips and go and then turn this way, and then now the ball's going over their shoulder. Flip your hips and go that way. And they're watching these guys very, very, very closely to see, yes, you're fast. Can you do all the other stuff we need to see you do? And then, you see Ryan Day come over, and it's like, I'm sure the players know what that means. And it's like, oh, it's about to get real. And then this is potentially like life changing offer for him. So that's pretty cool. And he was probably ticketed for Cincinnati beforehand. So this is not it's not like this was the only thing that was keeping him from a career flipping burgers or anything like that. But he was this is getting to play at Ohio State. No disrespect to Cincinnati, and I know Cincinnati made the college football playoff last year and all that, but if you get to go to Ohio State, that is a pretty cool opportunity to have for a player from in-state, from a program like Winton Woods that has sent other players to Ohio State over the years.
Yeah, and then, to perform that way at Ohio State with all eyes watching him, you could maybe say, well, that was a one-off. But then to go and do it again at LSU, where you kind of prove to everybody else that it wasn't just a good day. It didn't just look good against, maybe a subpar group of receivers or anything like that. And to go there and when he was at LSU, camping at LSU, multiple reports saying he was the best guy at the camp. And there are some schools when they offer corners, you're like, oh, you take note. Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, being perhaps D3 top corner schools, when they offer, you take note. And being an Ohio kid, for those two schools to offer, including Oklahoma, it's sometimes you see like Alabama throw an Ohio kid an offer to maybe confuse things or force Ohio State's hands. This was Alabama coming in late to the game, knowing that the fact that they do it this late means they actually want the kid. Like they think he can play. This isn't one of those things where let's just try to force Ohio State to offer a kid that they don't want. And there's this interplay between two massive programs. This is Alabama and LSU saying, we'd like you to come play for us if you want. And so I know some people will see the number 24 athlete nationally, number 373 player overall, and maybe be a little discouraged. But the camp offers are a little bit different. And I expect rankings to go up. I would also expect, Tom, it's okay for 24/7 if they rate this kid as a corner now instead of an athlete. Can we do that at least?
It does seem like sometimes guys will come to camp and it's, is this person, Arvell Reese, for example, from Glenville, is this person a linebacker? Is this person a defensive end? And then you see them working, specifically with one position group or another. And it's like, okay, now this is clearly where Ohio State sees this guy playing. If Ohio State and LSU see Jermaine Mathews as a corner, well, he's probably a corner. That's probably a pretty good indication of where he's going to play at the next level. And people talk about the Bama bump or the Buckeye bump that got recruits get after committing in terms of recruiting rankings. If when you have those, the NFL does or PFF or whoever does the clickbaity, which is the real DBU college, it's it's usually Alabama and LSU and Ohio State. So if you're going 3 for 3 for those with offers from those all to play corner, well, that's probably a pretty good indication that the bump is not just a courtesy Buckeye bump or courtesy Bama bump. It is hey, all the schools that seem to be good at this seem to think that you're good at this, so that means you're probably good at this.
Yeah, a couple of other camp offers that have nothing to do with corners, but are just kind of in the news recently. Terry McLaurin, he was a camp offer. He just signed a nice 3-year deal with Washington with the largest ever signing bonus for a receiver. Brian Hartline, we mentioned the 18th anniversary of the day he was offered was also a camp offer. So these camp offers, it's a different kind of drive from a player to earn these, and sometimes you see that chip on the shoulder just stay with them throughout. So Jermaine Matthews, obviously one to watch. He is now, Tom, the fourth cornerback committed in the 2023 class. And we did not have an opportunity to have an instant reaction show about the third cornerback committed in Calvin Simpson-Hunt, who committed on Thursday. And Tom, one of the reasons for that is if you want to make a splash or do something newsworthy, such as commit, do not do it on the same day that USC and UCLA announced that they are joining the Big Ten. That's just pro tip. Next time, kids, make sure you clear everybody else's schedule before you try to make a big splash. But Calvin Simpson-Hunt, basically the same size. They're both listed at 6 foot 175 as Jermaine Matthews, was committed to Texas Tech, decommitted about an hour before announcing his commitment to Ohio State. Waxahachie, Texas. Tom, I'm sure you've been there. Number 22 cornerback nationally, number 173 player overall. Something to like. One other thing to like. 10.67 in the 100 meters. So this is another fast guy for the Buckeyes.
Tony, before we get into Calvin Simpson-Hunt himself, I do need to do my favorite thing, which is to correct you. It is Waxahachie, and Waxahachie, Texas, is the home of a baseball manager back in the day named Paul Richards, who was famous for a move which he would have a pitcher come in, he would remove the pitcher from the game, or he would, when you had to switch pitchers to, like bring in a lefty or whatever to face a lefty, he would move the pitcher out to the outfield, and then he would bring him back in. That move, known as the Waxahachie swap. So, would you say Calvin Simpson-Hunt, Simpson-Hunt, uh, pulled a Simpson-Hunt pulled a Waxahachie swap by flipping from Texas Tech to Ohio State? I'll take my answer off the air. As far as the player himself, um, he's someone who our recruiting guys say just the physical measurables. He's not necessarily quite as ready to go on the field as some of the other guys in this cornerback class. I mean, Tyan Lee and Dijon Johnson. I mean, these are potentially like day one kind of ready to go in terms of just corner skill. Calvin Simpson-Hunt is maybe more, the physical ceiling might be there a little higher there, but he's probably not quite as refined in his technique and all that kind of stuff. So it might take a little longer for him to get on the field at the start. But, I was reading Mark Givler's analysis on him, and, you look at some of the names he's throwing around, and, like Marshawn Lattimore, like that's a pretty good comp where it's like, well, this guy is really, really physically gifted, and you just need to take a little bit of time to learn the position. And then if you can translate those physical talents and marry that with the skills that you're gonna have to learn, just refine the technique and all that kind of stuff, you could really have something there. It's not, this is not a project offensive lineman or anything where this is necessarily going to take 3 years to see any kind of fruit, but he may not necessarily be a day one potential contributor like some of the other guys in this class could be.
Well, and let's remember, Marshawn Lattimore wasn't Marshawn Lattimore until year 3. He redshirted as a freshman with an injury, played some as a redshirt freshman with injuries, and was a reserve corner, and then exploded as a redshirt sophomore starter, and was also a tremendous offensive player in high school. So he was listed as an athlete for a while, and he didn't know which side of the ball he may end up on. So there is some raw material there as well. People may see the Texas Tech and be like, well, what the heck? Now let's remember he committed to Texas Tech last year. I'm thinking as I look back through my commitment story last fall, basically, and then spent the spring earning offers from like everybody, including again Alabama and LSU, and Texas is in there, and Notre Dame, and all of these top programs are in there. So another one where the more people got to see him, the more they liked. And this is a situation, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, very similar. And the way they see these guys, they have to offer them sooner. Their threshold for offering is lower, so they can maybe take leaps on these guys first and get in there and create that bond, and then you hope that other programs don't see them, and then as they do, it's like, well, we're gonna have to work very hard to keep him. And there was some incredible drama with this Calvin Simpson-Hunt situation, to where I think we talked on one of the shows last week that Steve Wiltfong had put in a crystal ball to Ohio State for Calvin Simpson-Hunt. And then I guess the story was, as he called Texas Tech's coaches to let them know he was decommitting, they convinced him not to. And so then that crystal ball got revoked. But then the next day, or later on in that day, it got reapplied, because apparently the convincing job that Texas Tech's coaches did in keeping him from decommitting eventually wore off. And then you saw Calvin Simpson eventually, about an hour or so after announcing his decommitment, commit to Ohio State. So now, Tom, 4 corners in this class. I'm going to assume they are done, unless for some reason you've got, one of the top guys comes in and says, I would also like to be a Buckeye. Then you'll make room, especially in a defense like this one.
That sounds about right. I mean, we talked not that long ago about the potential of a 4 corner and 4 safety class, and how that's a lot of defensive backs, but also where things stand right now in that defensive back room, like you probably need to bring in that many guys, because realistically, are all 8, if they do bring in 8, are all 8 of them going to be 4 or 5 year players at Ohio State? Probably not. I mean, you're gonna lose someone to the transfer portal or someone to injury, or I mean, this is just kind of the nature of the sport at this point. And when you look, especially at the corner position, you're losing Cam Brown after this year. A year from now, you can have Denzel Burke, Ja'Kalen Johnson, Jordan Hancock all potentially leave. I mean, any or all of them could turn pro after the 2023 season. They're not all going to turn pro, but at least one, I think at least one is a possibility, and 2 is not out of the realm of possibility. And then they took 1 corner last year, Ryan Turner. And so you would have, potentially 2 corners on the roster plus whatever this class is. So you bring in 4 guys this year, then okay, then you have 6 corners who would be veterans next year plus whatever you're bringing in a year after that. So it's it is, you know, it feels crazy to think about Denzel Burke, who was just, the freshman phenom. And it's like, well, he's almost done with his career. And he's not almost done with his career, but in terms of recruiting, like you got to plan ahead because these are not, Denzel Burke is not the norm. A lot of these guys, even the guys who we're talking about as being kind of potential immediate impact guys, usually that immediate impact means like, well, maybe, you're getting into the rotation and you're the third corner or you're the fourth corner, something like that. And they trust you to maybe play in certain situations, not you're going to start day one like Denzel Burke did. So there is just, you kind of have to reload that room now because it is not just a walk onto campus and start day one kind of position usually. So you have to kind of plan ahead a little bit more, and that's what they're doing here. But four is a lot of corners. I don't think I've ever seen a 5 cornerback class, but I don't know if AJ Harris suddenly magically decided he had changed his mind and wanted to, would they fit him in the class? They might fit him in the class too.
Cormani McLean says, "Hey, I'd like to come on board." That 2017 class, Tom, Jeff Okuda, Sean Wade, Kendall Sheffield, Marcus Williamson, Amir Reap. Now, whether you want to call Amir Reap a corner or safety at the time, that was a lot of defensive backs, but yeah, like 5 straight corners. But again, I believe McKinley perhaps moves to nickel, which is still essentially a corner. So I'm going to, my own actually, as I like to do. So that's 3 receivers last week, 3 corners this week. So what's next? Darren Reed, defensive lineman from Georgia, Louisiana, the South. No, Georgia. Is committing, announcing his decision on July 4th. Maybe that springs a string of 3 defensive linemen for the Buckeyes. He tweeted out earlier this week that he's going to get whatever school he's committing to, he's going to start the defensive line class off right. And so I'm like, oh, well, that's a hint of where he's going to go. Let me go see how many defensive line commits are in each of his, his targets, and none. There are no defensive line commits at Ohio State or LSU or wherever. So no hint provided at all. I'm not expecting another, I don't expect a run. This is not the NFL draft or fantasy draft where it's like, oh no, the tight ends, there's a run on tight ends. I don't expect a run on defensive linemen next week though, Tom, unless, do you?
I don't think so. It doesn't seem like there's a lot that, there's not a lot of in-state defensive linemen that they're looking at as that I'm aware of. And it didn't sound like any of the sort of out-of-state defensive linemen were particularly likely to be at the top of the list of guys who are going to commit soon. I feel like we're kind of running out of those. There was sort of a list of like, here are, 5 to 6 to 7 guys who could commit by, say, mid-July. And it does feel like we're kind of running out of those guys because they've all committed already. So yeah, I think you're going to see stuff slow down because they're already, the class is not full yet, but it's getting full-ish. It is getting full adjacent at this point. So you're down to the point where there are going to be a few more defensive linemen. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily real imminent though. So we may in fact have a week or two of relative calm and quiet, and I say that, and then Notre Dame is going to go join the NFC North, and college football will completely change again, and they'll get commitments from 7 new players over the holiday weekend or something.
So we have done an instant reaction show on this show. We have instantly reacted to Jermaine Matthews. We have a delayed reaction to Calvin Simpson-Hunt, and we will also have to discuss the press conference today from Gene Smith and Christina Johnson. One other thing before that, though, I want to discuss, Tom, and that is Ohio State safety target Jaden Bonsu, who tweeted on Thursday something to the effect of, "Hey, big announcement coming at 8." And it's like, well, he scheduled his commitment for August. He's already dropped his top schools. What could this big announcement be? And Tom, he's dropping an NFT. And I am totally against everything like this. For one, I'm against NFTs. For two, I am very against recruits tweeting, "Hey, big announcement." And it's like, oh, do I need to get something ready? Is there something going on? And no, it's just my NFTs. Tom, we need to get the president to react, do something. Congress, I don't care. Supreme Court, do something about this. This has to end.
I'm not sure that's going to be the very top of everyone's priority list in Washington D.C. at the moment, but yeah, I feel like this could be the extremely unwelcome third wave of NIL following the the initial wave of hey, I got a car, and then the collective era, and now here is my bored ape, pay me to come to your school. um, NFTs are one of those things that I think I could talk very confidently about NFTs for about 37 seconds, as long as you were permitted no follow-up questions. But my general sense is this is not something that has been holding its value particularly well as an asset class recently. So we'll see how long this lasts, and maybe the college football recruiting world of NFTs has missed its window, because there was a time when the NBA Top Shot whatever was going to the moon, and then now it seems like everything's sort of losing its value again, as it just broadly speaking as an asset class. But yeah, I don't think I'm super on board with you know this being the next wave of college football recruiting, mostly because I don't want to have to learn about it.
I think you should, these guys who are doing their commitments, and again, no disrespect to the NFT stuff. We just, it's not our thing. And if it's your thing, that's fantastic. We all need hobbies and it's cool to have stuff, and that's all great. What these guys, these recruits should start making the NFTs of is their commitment videos. But you got to do something like outrageous to make that image or GIF worth it. I'm just trying to think back on past commitment videos that would be, worth anything. And you had the Florida Gator a while back who committed with a little live alligator. You've had like the Georgia Bulldog do it with a puppy, and so that's different. Braxton Miller, when he committed, he grabbed about 4 different hats, and so that was annoying. But there's certainly things you can do there and advance the NFT and marketability for all athletes, and go for it and do what you got to do.
Tony, are we going to have you have to introduce NFT science now? You as the inventor and proprietor of Hat Science as a recruiting metric, are we going to have to introduce NFT science?
No, and I get very angry about this at times when you have all of these graphics, these edits of top 5 schools, and people will tweet at me, "Hey, how does this apply to hat science?" And I respond, "Do you see a hat? Do you see any hats? Do you see a table? It does not apply. Edits do not apply to hat science. It is called hat science." And it's like if you go to a whale scientist and you're like, "Look at this ostrich. What does this mean?" "I don't know. I'm a whale scientist. Don't bring Why do people keep bringing me ostriches? I am a whale scientist. It says it right here on my lanyard." And so it's just, yes, it's a very annoying thing that I have to deal with almost on a daily basis now.
Look, I'm a whale scientist. Look, do you see this golf ball? Would an ostrich scientist have this? No, I had to pull this out of a whale's blowhole. Come on, you've seen the episode, you know. Yeah, whale scientist, another class of things that I'm not sure. I don't think that's the technical term, but yes, that's I yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to file recruiting NFTs under the same category that I have TikTok under, which is like that's a thing that other people do. I'm too old for that. I'm at the point where I'm too old to learn about new things. So we're just gonna I will stick with my Twitter and my hat science, and you can have your TikTok dances and your recruiting NFTs, and go with God.
The great thing about TikTok, Tom, is that the olds have taken it over and it has angered a lot of the kids. I've got nieces in that age range who would do their dances and stuff, a couple years ago, and now it's like they don't do it anymore because it's just taken over by people our age, showing how their annoying neighbors are always like encroaching on their fences, or it's for everybody now, Tom, except for the kids, which is the best kind of something. So, Tom, speaking of something for everybody, let's discuss this Big Ten move for with the addition of USC and UCLA. Friday morning, crack of dawn, 8 a.m., really before dawn, actually, for most people. Gene Smith and OSU President Christina Johnson, had a press conference just to discuss the move of those two schools to the Big Ten and their thoughts on it. Very happy on both of their both are very happy talking about 25,000 alums in California, OSU alums in California. Certainly more than that from the entire Big Ten schools, where California is it's basically Big Ten country as we know. Just some of the notes there. Gene Smith was asked if this is is it just going to be these two, and he said he can't see the future. I At this point in time, I think I would be surprised if it's just these two. What about you?
I would be very surprised if it's just these two. And there's some stuff with the Pac-12 contracts where the reason that the news happened on the 30th of June was because that was the last day that they could notify the Pac-12 about their intent to leave in 2024 without paying an additional fine. So that's why that came out then. If Washington or Oregon or Stanford or Utah or Colorado, if any of them were deemed worthy of inclusion in the Big Ten club, number one, they would leave a cartoon style cutout in the side of the Pac-12 offices, racing through the wall to get out and go to join the Big Ten. And number two, if they have to pay a fine, and I don't know what the exit fee would be for the Pac-12 at that point, if there is some additional fee, they won't care. They will pay it because even if it's $30 million, you're probably making an additional, more than 30 additional million dollars in that first year of whatever that TV deal is. So that's not going to keep anyone from leaving. But, I think the interesting piece here is Notre Dame. Notre Dame is, I feel like kind of one of the keys to what happens next. Because, if there is a way if there's a way Notre Dame can get out of the ACC contract, they may do that. The interesting piece of Notre Dame is, my understanding with them is that they have a grant of rights with the ACC, but it's not for their football revenue. It's just for all their other sport revenues. So if they have to write off worst case scenario, they can't get out of the contract at all, and they have to write off their basketball and baseball TV revenue for the next 15 years. So Notre Dame's current TV contract runs through 2026 with NBC. They're making a whopping $15 million a year for their football games. Now, that number is obviously going to go up regardless of what they're doing in 2026. But if they do come to the Big Ten, if you're making $100 million at the Big Ten as opposed to, say, 50 from NBC, say the number goes up more than triples, you're $50 million there and another $10 million a year or whatever from your other sports TV revenues. Let's just kind of ballpark it there. Say it's 50 plus 10. If you're making $100 million in the Big Ten, well, that's $40 million extra dollars every single year for the next 15 years. This feels, and there were ACC reporters last night saying, like, boy, Notre Dame, Notre Dame has never been more important than the ACC. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to need someone to walk me through what exactly the ACC has to offer Notre Dame right now, because I'm sure they love playing Wake Forest every couple of years, but the ACC TV contract, even with Notre Dame, that's not anywhere close to $100 million a year. So what exactly is the Notre Dame getting offered there? So I think the question to me at this point is, does Notre Dame view that independence as such a crucial piece of their identity that they're not willing to change, not willing to compromise? Or are they going to chase the money, which is what everyone else seems to do? Because if you're not willing to chase the money, you're going to just continue to fall further behind as college football sort of separates into the haves and the have-nots. You might be kind of between those two, but you are not going to be a have if you're operating independently. You're not making $100 million a year for 6 Notre Dame home TV games. So I think the order of likelihood to me right now is, staying independent and going to the Big Ten are clearly 1, 2, and I'm not 100% sure which I think the most likely choice is there. I'm going to be talking to a Notre Dame beat writer very shortly for a upcoming Morning Scoop episode. So I'm going to get the Notre Dame perspective on this pretty soon. But my sense is, it's either the Big Ten or it's independent. I can't see them possibly deciding to go to the ACC. I mean, unless am I missing something? Is there something I'm not thinking about here in terms of Notre Dame?
No, I'm with you. Although, staying independent kind of puts them in purgatory, which for a Catholic school, I guess is, I guess that they're okay with that in a sense, but eventually you've got to move on, right? This is their opportunity to move to Big Ten heaven, basically. I don't think they can survive alone, and certainly there's no. We talked about this, I think, on Thursday show. Like, if they do side with the ACC is still going to need some more things, and the Big Ten just makes so much sense. And I really feel like Notre Dame cannot remain independent. And we saw what happened in 2020, the COVID year, where for several reasons, including money, they decided to latch on with the ACC. And so they're they've done it before on a smaller scale, but I really think, and they do it in basketball and all of their other sports. They're in the Big Ten and hockey. They can try to keep up this facade. Although, Tom, I really thought that Pat Forty had a really, interesting thought that Notre Dame, you talk about the haves and have-nots, would willingly and voluntarily become one of the have-nots, and maybe they and Stanford would go hand in hand to the Ivy League, or be like, you know what, we do not. There's money, the love of money, as we know, Tom, the root of all evil, and they will not have it anymore, and they will voluntarily just drop down to a not quite non-rev, but almost.
Tony, do you remember back in the day when Jim Delaney said that if college football players were getting paid, that the Big Ten would go Division III? Do you remember when that happened? Anyway, so uh, college football players are getting paid now. Is the Big Ten getting smaller, de-emphasizing sports, shunning money, the root of all evil, as it is? Is that what's happened with the league since then?
Y- No, no.
No, I don't think it is. In fact, I think the opposite has happened. This is one of these great examples of the human condition, shall we say? Where yes, it is very nice to have principles. It is very nice to truly believe in things, and then reality hits. And guess what? If you're the person running Notre Dame athletics, guess what? If you're Division III, if you're de-emphasizing sports, your facilities aren't as nice. Notre Dame Stadium is you're going to pack that out for the Notre Dame and I don't know, Georgetown football games. Who exactly are we playing in this league? Uh, I feel like generally people are not going to do things that are directly against their own financial self-interest willingly. So yes, I do not in fact think that is the most likely thing to happen. That seems like one of those things that's like, well, he talked to someone and the person said, well, I mean, we could do this, and it's like, yes, you could do things. I could do a lot of things right now, but guess what? I'm not going to do most of them because most of them are stupid. So that is stupid. They will not do that. No. So yes, Notre Dame is ultimately going to do what everyone does, which is chase the money, and uh, that's why I think the likelihood of Notre Dame ending up in the Big Ten is 90% higher than it was 72 hours ago. It just feels like, okay, this is USC and UCLA were the first step in a process that I think we all thought was going to happen, but we didn't think was necessarily going to happen quite this soon. Everyone sees where you can see where everything's lining up right now. You can see who the haves are. You can see who the have-nots are going to be, and I mean, maybe they will do the extremely noble thing and not chase the almighty dollar. But I feel like history indicates they're probably going to do exactly what everyone else is going to do in that situation.
Yeah, Notre Dame right now to me feels inevitable to the Big Ten. One last thing on Jim Delaney. I think maybe you misheard him. When he said Division III, I think what he actually said, and maybe he misspoke, was three divisions. The Big Ten will eventually have three divisions. And so that maybe that's what it was. You have a West division, you have a Midwest, you have an East division. I think that's probably where you're a little confused at, Tom, but no surprise there. Anything else before we go?
I think that does it. We should probably get this done and posted very quickly before I don't know, the New York Jets join the Big Ten East or something. So let's wrap it up, and we'll probably have more commitment news coming in the next few days, and who knows if we'll have more conference realignment news. I love the summers. I love the off seasons when it's nice and slow and we can all just kind of relax and take it easy for a while.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So while you are all relaxing and taking it easy, don't forget to listen to all of the podcasts here on the network. Tom with Morning Scoop, Alex with the Around the Oval, we got Mark Givler and Bill Green with the Gives in the Bank podcast, Kevin with the Big Me Kickoff. Check all of those out, including this one. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for all you do for us. Thanks for all you do for everybody. And that will do it for today. We'll talk to you later. Have a good one.